It's alright, Poison. I see you. Good morning, Poison. I totally did not forget to turn on VTube Studio or anything. That's not at all what I just did. Give me 1 second here. No game yet. 1 second, sweeties. Be patient. You know, it's funny. I've been sitting here waiting for stream to start, being like, I'm so ready, guys. I'm here on time. I am so ready to go. And then I'm like, oh, where am I? Sometimes I forget that I have an actual physical body. There we go. Hi. How do you not get annoyed with yourself when you record stuff for TikTok? Cat Attack, are you saying that I should be annoyed with my stuff? Do you not like my stuff? How dare you? Hello, Lapis Lore. Hello, hello, hello. Alright, we're gonna go through all of our little stuff in the morning. You may not come out of the basement. Never, ever, ever. So first we're gonna say thank you to all those. Don't worry about those. No, don't worry. Your cell's somewhere better. Prettier. So first we're gonna do our classics. Going through our thanking the people who got here first. Then I'm going to say hello to everybody who checked in. Poison, I did see that your check-in didn't work. And I know that it sometimes does have issues occasionally. So thank you and good morning, Poison. And also, good morning, Yoshihiko. Thank you for getting first. Good morning, nap time. Thank you for getting second. And good morning, who got third? Emperor. Good morning, Emperor. Thank you for getting third. And now, for everyone who's now checked in, good morning, Katamia. And Poison. Oh, Poison, you did check in already. You checked in at 8. You checked in right at the very beginning. It did work. You're fine. Good morning, Yoshihiko. Good morning, Emperor and nap time. Good morning, Annabelle. It did. Good morning, Okami. Good morning, Valero. Been a little bit. I hope you've been doing well, Valero. I know you and my schedule are kind of opposites, so it's always good to see you. Good morning, My Chemical Flame. Good morning, Ocean. Good morning, Echo Infernal. Good morning, Lunar. Good morning, Full Metal Brookie. Good morning, Avinity. Good morning, Meow Kitty Cat. Congratulations on the 7 stream streak, Siggy. Good morning, Ban and Cat Attack. Good morning, Sakona and Tater. Good morning, Oliver the Tiny Wizard. Good morning, Little Kitty Cat. And good morning, Neela. Oh, good morning, Anapocalypse. Good morning, Sally. Good morning, Lepus. Good morning, Spell. And good morning, Dwarf. How's everybody doing today? Well, maybe don't do them out of order. You absolute nerd. I'm so proud of you for getting them in order. And for those of you who haven't seen it, let's go. We'll do a little check-in. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So yes, some of you might recognize this place. Some of you might not. But I also installed an extra feature recently, so I want to show you off the feature, okay? So, in times when it's early in the morning and we still want to do some silly, goofy stuff, I can still hit this button here and, ooh, look at it. It's a silent gate. Congratulations on being locked in here when it's all nice and silent. It's okay. It's okay. It has a silent mode. Carmia, you're getting too comfortable here. You're making me worry. Hello, my little modeling. And hello, my lovely voidlings. And here's a burger. You can have a burger for breakfast. You know, everybody gets burgers. Chat, we're having a burger breakfast. Enjoy your burger breakfast. I actually love having burgers for breakfast. I love non-breakfast food for breakfast. Can I have toast instead? Oh. Okay, fine. You know what? We'll get some waffles. Let's get some waffles together, okay? I'll take me a little while to verify that I am in fact human, but let me get them. I might make a tab of just like, here's breakfast food. Oh, right, I don't have my overlay turned on yet. Give me 1 second, sweeties. Oh, here's a question. Square waffles or circle waffles? Which do you prefer? Potato waffles. Ooh, valid, valid, valid. Alright, let me verify that I'm a human real quick. Oh, shoot. I messed up. I guess I'm not human. Alright, here you go. Some little waffles for you. Should we get some pancakes too? What? What do you mean? I don't have any weird ears. I have human ears, see? Here we go. We have some pancakes. What else can we get? Ooh, what is this? Oh, that looks almost like a German breakfast. Let's see. Oh, here's my kind of breakfast. A lovely little breakfast thing with a croissant and a coffee. wonder if I can find a German breakfast. Give me a second. I'm just going to find a picture of a German breakfast and post it. Nothing I love more than my German breakfasts. That'll do. That'll do. I don't think I can get that one over. 1 second while I try to download this. I'm stealing pictures off Reddit. And here we go. You ready for your German breakfast? Ta-da! German breakfast. You have your meats, your cheeses, your little jams, your breads, your coffees, a little bit of fruit, always like a boiled egg. I love it so very much. It's one of my favorites. You want hot chocolate? Oh, hot chocolate would be so nice. I genuinely, my favorite my favorite breakfast is a German breakfast. So what it usually is you'll have like fresh bread rolls. You have like some thick yellow butter. You have like a plate of meats and cheeses. You'll have jams and quark. Quark is a like a soft cream kind of thing. And so you make like little sandwiches with coffees, and you'll have some fruit and a boiled egg, and it's nice. Fine, and nap time can have tacos. We'll add shrimp and grits, and we'll add tacos, okay? Breakfast taco or normal taco? You make your own butter? I've always wanted to. I've done it once. A normal taco? I vibe with normal taco. Vibe hardcore. The normal taco. Are we talking like normal American taco? Or are we talking about normal Mexican taco? Ooh, okay, I got you right now. You ready for this? You ready for this? Just for you. Oh, terrified rhythm. No, you ready? So taco is a loaded. Oh, 1 second. We're gonna go to the different screen. So a taco is a loaded carb wrap, basically. Like this. This is what a taco is. So you have your outside that's soft. You'll have like your cooked, seasoned, spiced meats, topped with tomatoes and stuff. Whatever topping you want. Bend it in half and eat it. Very good. Comes from Mexico, and I don't know if they have them in Spain. I think this is very much like a more South American kind of thing. Usually not this heavily loaded, but yeah, it's very good though. Yeah, we'll go a little bit lighter. No, I found the Taco Bell taco. Mm-hmm. Once I do, once we do a hand reveal, I'll make tacos for everybody. It brings tacos from in bulk from Mexico. That's kind of amazing. Yeah, good morning, good morning, morning. Oh, I'm sorry you hurt yourself. It's been a goofy morning, you know? So, okay. Let's see, we've already been at 20 minutes on stream going. Have a good time, Meow. Bye, Meow Kitty. Thank you for coming by. I'm such a good doggy. Not a dog. So, we're going to be doing some more Crime Scene Cleaner because I'm obsessed with that game. We'll be doing more Dispatch in the evening. And I think that pretty much covers it for right now. What is this, though? Oh, there's a new post-apocalyptic survival game. Ooh. I wonder what it's about. It's called Vane. I might try the demo. It looks very, very interesting. It might just be another zombie game, though. Oh, am I all the way in your ear? What if I are just... I'm eating your brains, Chad. I'm just gonna eat your brains real quick. Come here, just... I'm sorry, I'm eating your brain. Yep, tasty. No brain for you now. You get no brain. Oh, I'm sorry, Lunar. My brain now. I am so wanting to play Dispatch that instead of actually hitting the game that I'm supposed to hit, I immediately just typed in Dispatch. Alright, I'll teach you some English right now. You ready? Okay, English word of the day is, give me a second. Pneumo. Ultramicroscopic silicovolcanic clanocanosis. It's the longest word in the English language. It doesn't mean anything worthwhile. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be trying to add subtitles to stream, because I know sometimes it can be hard to understand me. So hopefully... Oh, it means... what does it mean, not how does it mean? It means a lung disease caused by inhaling fine silica dust from a volcano. So just specifically a lung disease caused by inhaling dust from a volcano. Yeah. Voice training? Oh, well, I mean, I did very little voice training. I had like one voice acting class. I have done stuff over time that I realized later on was doing vocal training. But for me, you know, it's just learning how to like drop back my larynx. And that way, farther back it goes, and the deeper you can get into your throat. Until, yeah. But yes, by the way, if ever like me correcting something somebody says bothers you, please let me know. I have like spent time trying to learn like German and other languages, and I personally prefer when people like correct my pronunciation or correct like grammar mistakes. So if I ever correct a grammar mistake, know that I'm only doing it out of, like, kindness and not out of, like, maliciousness. Especially if you tell me that you're learning English, then I will go out of my way to be like, oh, hey, here's how you address this. So this game is Crime Scene Cleaner. I do soft-spoken gaming. ASMR is just the soft-spokenness. I just turned it off, Carmia. I just turned it off. I forget about that one sometimes. I think what I need to do is I need to build an entire different scene for this. That'll fix some of my issues. Good morning, Dr. Rowie. How are you doing? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, I love this. This is Warehouse LTD. I didn't realize it was like a werewolf warehouse. But yes, if ever me like correcting anything anybody says bothers you, please let me know, okay? Hi Lily, how you doing? What are we missing? Okay, there's one clue somewhere that I'm missing that I need to find. No, exactly. And so it's not necessarily that you can't hear me but understand me. So that's why I'm thinking about getting subtitles to make it easier sometimes. We'll try it out though. And if they don't work out well, what can you do? Congratulations. Yeah. So it'll be coming soon. I reached out to Fia. Goblin Fia. And their subtitles look to be working really well. They also enunciate better than I do though, so we'll see if that has any effect on it. Rumble, 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 rumble. Grrf, woof, 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 grrf. And now to shut off Carmia's brain by just going. Okay, it has to be here somewhere, right? Duck, don't talk to ducks. Don't. I wish I could open this door. I bet it's a secret. I bet there's a secret back there. Is it Rune? Well, I'm glad you're done with your exam. Congrats, by the way. Secrety secrets? I know secrety secrets being secret. How dare they? Don't twack me. What a crazy thing to want to do. Oh, by the way, I think the book should be arriving today. So tomorrow we're probably going to do a book reading at night. Twack, I think they mean like thwack. And thwack is the noise it makes when you hit somebody. So it's also used as a word to say you're going to hit somebody. Hmm. No clue yet. I have not actually planned out the night part yet. But the night part will be very, like, low interaction. I'll be just mostly focusing on reading so that we can get, like, a nice, clean read of it. And then I'll post the clean read on, like, YouTube and stuff. My goal is to give more of also, like, a sleep aid. Alright, Lily, you be good. So I'll probably have, like, all alerts turned off and just work on it. Maybe I'll make a separate account just for reading books. I'll make the LuckyJene reading account. Okay, where is this evidence? And the reason why I'd want to make a separate account is because I think there's some expected amount of interaction when it comes to this account. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't want to, have new people come in and be like, oh, he just doesn't talk to us and ignores us completely. Unless maybe I just post it on the screen. We'll just have a picture that says hi. A different account on Twitch, probably. But, or I can just put up a sign being like, hey, Gene is currently reading. And will not be, cannot see comments at this time. Hello, Julia. I'm doing very well. I hope you're doing well as well. Well. I hope you're doing well. Oh, interesting. Can I get in? Can I get in, please? I see the secrets, I just can't figure out how to access them. Super. I want to listen to that song now. That's too bad. Super. Wait, what if I do this?
Fuck. Now I have to rush downstairs again.
Dang. Oh, the song that I'm thinking of right now is Super by, who is that by? MF Doom. Love me some MF Doom. One of the greatest things I've seen recently has been an MF Doom cover of a Taylor Swift song. Like somebody did a Taylor Swift song in the style of MF Doom, because the most recent Taylor Swift stuff apparently is not good. And they're just like, oh, the problem is not that it's not good. The problem is that the delivery is wrong. And it sounds like an MF Doom song, but you slow it down and you throw on some nice beats. Hi, Gene, how are you? I'm good, how are you? Doing very well, thank you. Just stopping by to hang out. Aw, that's always sweet. Okay, there is. Find out what happened. So let's think about what happened, okay? The guy came in. A duck walked up to the lemonade stand and he said to the man running the stand, hey, got any grapes? Calypsy. He said, well, no. I don't have any grapes. What I have is lemonade. And then he waddled away. Waddle, waddle. Then he waddled away. Waddle, waddle. Till the very next day. Bum, 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 bum. The only thing I can think of that I haven't really looked at is what's right behind this door, which is driving me absolutely off the wall. Not really. I just saw something and made me think duck. No, what's stuck on my head is MF Doom. I need to look at the lyrics. Give me a second. I got this girl and she wants me to duke her. I told her I'd come and scoop her up around day. She said, super. That sounds great. Shorty goes a trooper. No matter what I need her to do, she'd be like super. On his own throne, the boss like King Koopa. On the microphone, he flossed the ring, super. Average MCs is like a TV blooper. MF Doom, he's like DP Koopa. Give me a second. Give me a second. Morning, Tabby. Morning, Tabby. Wait. I just think it'd be so funny to go do like a slam poetry night and just melodically read rap. I mean, out with the moolah, I let her get an outfit just to cool her off. She said, ain't about shit. I wonder if she mean it. I doubt it. The way it be in her mouth, she can't live without it. And can't live with this. Handle your business. Villain, stay on scandalous house shit list. 1 pack of cookies, please, Mr. Hooper. It's fun smacking rookies. He is the super. I just want to do that. I want to go to a poetry night and just read rap. I think it'd be the greatest thing in the entire world, and I'd be so happy. Good morning, Raziel. How you doing? And we can always do the artificial amateurs aren't it all amazing? Analytically, I astound, animate things. Broken barriers, bound in by the bomb beat. Buildings are broken, basically I'm bombarding. Casually, catastrophes, casualties, canceling cats got their canopies collapsing. Detonate a dime a dang. Daily do and don't. demonstrations done on the down low, eaten other editors which even edge each and every epileptic episode, elevated etiquette, furious, fabulous fantastics, feeding the funk, filled, feeding the fanatics. Great. Anyways. I'm doing very well. Give grumble great good, goods gone glorious, getting godly in his name with the glorious, hit him high, hella high, historicals, hey, Holocaust hymns, hero. All at your homeboy, eating other editors, which each and every epileptic episode. Wait, I lost. All at your homeboy. Oh, it's fine. My brain's shut down. Oh, I'm thinking about starting to use. Oh, good morning, I just woke up. Okay, can I tell you something weird? Like something like really weird to me specifically. One of my favorite ways to sleep, one of my favorite sleeps, and I know this is a weird way of describing it, is the sleep you get from being exhausted after a flight, falling into your own bed with your clothes still on, where you're so tired that you're just like, I don't even want to undress. And you wake up just in the same clothes you wore on the flight. And it's like such a weirdly massive, deep sleep that when you come to, it's like you hit a new place. And it's such a good sleep. It's such a unique sleep experience. It's great. It's not necessarily the most restful in the world. And you'll wake up and you'll have little lines on your body on where the clothes pressed into your skin, but it's nice. But the best sleep I have ever had was when I was in, I think, middle school. And I think about it constantly, which can tell you how great the sleep was. It wasn't even a full sleep. I didn't go fully under. But I was laying in one of those deck chairs. You know, the ones with the cushion that if you have them for too long, they soak up all the water and like deteriorate in instants. Well, this one was still in a good state. And I found a spot where our deck had sun. And if you put it right there, there was a nice little cross piece, and it was just cold enough that if you stood out in the shade, you'd get cold, but if you stood out in the sun, you'd still be warm. And the nice little breeze kept the heat off of me, but the sun baked me, so it felt like I was wearing a blanket of sunshine. And as I sat there, I felt myself slip deeper and deeper into not unconsciousness, but just almost unawareness, knowing that I was fully awake, but not there. And the way it felt was just a peace, a calmness, a nice little oneness that was amazing. And I think about that constantly, wanting to recreate it. And I know I could. Give me the right day and a chair out in the sun. But I've yet to do it. And I can't tell you why. Okay, I gotta find out what happened. We're missing one thing left. I don't know what it is. That's good too. I can tell you one of my worst sleeps. Oh, another one that I really enjoyed. I went to Ocean City. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ocean City is a small strip of land off the coast of Maryland. It is basically a road with things on either side of it. And it was a car show going on. That's why we had gone there, because my father loves car shows. And as late at night, opened 2 windows for the perfect ocean cross breeze, and you could hear the slight rumbling of cars going up and down the strip, just enough to create a constant background noise, but not too much that it started, getting to you after a while. And the mixture of that nice cross breeze kind of toning out the more harsher sounds and the smell of the ocean right there. Waves not too heavy, not too soft, just enough. And of course, if always a breeze to keep you just the right temperature. Ideal. I am going insane. I cannot think of where to find this. They're like, hey, find out what happened. I know what happened. A guy went crazy and shot people. What am I missing? Well, no, it's all the rooms. Every room. Somewhere is a clue. See, there's... Oh, wait, it's here. It's here. Okay. If it's this car, I'm gonna be upset. No, it's not the car. Oh, you're kidding. Is it are you? No? Not the dock. Hmm. Good morning, Vanya. Good morning, my raccoon. We should start having a mod day. I'll bring a different mod onto the stream and I can introduce them to you all. Y'all can see how cool they are. Get to know them a little bit. How would the mods feel about that? We're also going to be doing mod applications soon, because we do need more mods, unfortunately. Not unfortunately. I'm very happy that we're getting more and more people. And I just stream non-stop so often that I can't really blame mods for not being there every second of my day. Like, geez, don't you know that the most important thing in your life should be my streams? I'm Moreau. Hey, it's been a little bit. What are your regulations? All mods must wear a uniform. The uniform is I don't know. I can't think of anything that's like funny, but like not like just insanely off-putting at the same time. Court jester. No, that's my uniform. Stop trying to take my uniform. If anybody's a jester, here's me, Batman. Oh, no. Don't tell me I'm dumb. Do you know what I woke up to this morning? Do you want to know what I woke up to this morning? I woke up to the Batman theme song. You should wear a suit, Casey. I woke up to I woke up to two things. First, I woke up to Walkie Talkie Man, which is an amazing song. And then I woke up to the classic Batman theme song, the na 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 Batman. Found it.
Now I'm certain about who is responsible for Tammy's disappearance. Every day that I work for this scumbag makes me sick to my stomach. But I have to endure it for now. That arrogant piece of trash promoted me, so he must trust me on some level. He's weak now and won't see what's coming.
Me when I don't see what's coming.
You will pay.
That feels too loud to me. I apologize. Let me fix this. Was it still an ASMR stream? You're hungry? Oh. How long have I been a streamer for? That's a loaded question. I have many different answers. I have been a proper VTuber for the last, since about July 7th. I did some streaming before then, but I really didn't, I needed to change the way I did streaming. And so, either a year, if you consider a VTuber, less than 6 months, if you consider what I've done most recently is my primary thing, or off and on, I've been a content creator in general for about 8 years. But that was like going all the way back to like middle school when I tried to do YouTube the first time, and I did a bit of streaming early on. That really wasn't any sort of direction or goal. I've done everything wrong with streaming and spent time really learning it. Yeah, old. Just because I've done content creation ever since I was young does not mean anything. What makes you want to be one? I enjoy it. I enjoy this more than I enjoy anything else in my life. It gives me satisfaction creatively because I can make my shorts, which apparently I need to think of a new bit. I think the Basement Chronicles are getting old. What is that? Okay. My brain just shut off. It's gone. Bye, brain. Oh yeah, now time's a baby. Who's a Gucci Gucci Goo? What furniture did I just move? Dang. Point and laugh at the baby. Have y'all ever seen Tom Ska? Please tell me you've all seen Tom Ska. I love Tom Ska. I like the one he recently did the one that's like, oh, where's the baby? Oh, it was not recent, it's a long time ago. And he's like, where's the baby? Where's the baby? Where is the baby? And it turns and the baby's just not there. And they're just all baby talking about the baby who's gone missing. And the nation is wondering, where is the baby? Well, yeah, and that's very much of a thing of like, you can have the greatest intentions, but still, not do things right, which is okay. We're allowed to make mistakes. And with everything else that happened with Ed, I mean, like, I feel awful for Tom. Animator, comedian, content creator. Where is there's 2% of my trash still here. Where is the trash? Chat, where's the trash? Stop munching on the trash. What the hey? There it is. Oh, you're kidding me. Oh, you're kidding. That's not funny. That's not funny. That's not funny. Okay, I have an idea. I have an idea. It might work. We're going to try this. Okay. I plan on streaming until 5:30, so we have another hour. Maybe longer, depends. But usually only just that long. Okay, I have an idea. What if I... What else is trash? I need more trash. Well, I need that one piece of trash. I need that piece of trash. It's so important I get this piece of trash. Are you trash? Not trash. Okay. Cup. Smash it a cup. Smash the cup. There we go. Okay. insane, going insane, going insane, going insane. Grumble, 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 grumble. You know, fine, fine. I can be down by 2%. That's okay. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I just learned not to move the furniture back before I pick up all the trash, apparently. What do you mean I'm not done yet? What do you mean I'm not? Oh, bring your findings back to the office. Okay. Fine. Sorry, Chad. I got very distracted there. I got so annoyed. A little salty. See, today I re-added carbonation to my Mountain Dew. I thought it was kind of funny. I don't have to be perfect to be enough. It's very valid. It did work. Yeah, I have a carbonator. Good morning, Pinky, sweetie. Y'all go check out Pink sometime. Pink does some fantastic art and also streams. If you look at my emotes, most of them were made by Pink. At least a good portion. As well as my Be Right Back. My friend told me I wasn't allowed to do that with the soda stream. I bet your friend also told you you shouldn't carbonate wine. And I did that. And it was good. Are you still doing commissions, Pink? Pink does lots of cool art stuff. That's fair, that's fair. Carbonating wine is so good. It was the best idea I've ever had. I did a white wine. It basically made it champagne. Oh, I guess they didn't count that one piece of trash. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I have not carbonated ketchup yet, but I will. I will. We're gonna mute the game because I think there might be a video sequence and that might be a little bit loud. Honestly, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work, unfortunately. But I'm gonna try. Chad, it's playing hard rock music. I'm so glad I muted it. It is so loud. Wait, are we done? No, 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 no. We're not done. We're not done. We're not done. We're not done. No. No. No, I'm not done. I'm not. I'm not. No. No. I don't want to be done. I'm sad now. Mm. Mm. I want to clean more crime. I want to clean up more crimes. Where's my crimes? I want to clean up crimes. Can I say I don't need to be? Oh, that was actually I don't need to be perfect to be enough. Fuck perfection. Roof. I don't want to. Mm. We can play Vintage Story. I can also play the new Power Washer game. Maybe the new Power Washer game is good. I don't want to power wash. I want to clean up blood and crime. I want to clean up blood and crime. I want to clean up blood and crime. Too short of game. 0 out of 10, bad game. Hate it. No, that's not how ADD works. Can't do it. I guess we can do Power Wash. I don't think I'm gonna like Power Wash 2, but we'll try it. The only way I could possibly like Power Wash Simulator is if they have you start off with absolutely nothing in like an ugly house, and then you build it up. That's what I need. That's what I need. I need to have my progression satisfied. And if they're just like, yeah, you're a normal guy at the business and you're cleaning junk, it's not gonna be worth it. I need visible growth. Right? My favorite kinds of games are always the ones where you start with like nothing and you build up. That's why I loved Grand Theft Auto 4. Yeah. And San Andreas was good too. I did not like Vice City. And I was not a fan of 5 because the characters like started after success. I'm looking at the game right now because I wanted to adjust the volume before we went in. I'm not gonna like this. No. Nope. No, I'll have to try it off stream. Redeems, hydrate. Hydrate, thank you for the hydrate. Thank you for the stretch. Oh, thank you for the follow, Miss Crimson Kiss. Sorry, I didn't notice. Yeah, it was bad. I did not like. Okay, I guess we can do vintage story. And water park game was fun, but it's a bit too high energy right now. Can you imagine? What if we play the water park simulator, but I play it chill and relaxed? We make a nice water park. Oh, don't get me wrong. Power Wash Simulator is a great game for what it does. It unfortunately avoids my ADD needs. Like, it does what it does really, really well. But it does not give me, like, a progression system. All of my stuff looks top tier. I'm not working with any sort of, like, bad equipment at the beginning. I'm not, like, having a... Like, the covering up the crime was a really nice bit. But this doesn't have anything to draw me in. The draw of Power Wash Simulator is the mechanics. Yeah, but I mean, I would need the only way I could enjoy Power Wash Simulator is if the first gun that you had, like sprayer, looked janky. But it doesn't. It all looks clean and modern. I need visuals. I need the kind of visuals that make me feel like I'm progressing through a story. I did find another game called Cash Cleaner Simulator. That might be fun, but I don't know. House Flipper could be one. I think the problem is a lot of those games rely on the mechanics to be the fun part, and me, I need this unique story as well. If you're to say I'm doing power watching, but I'm doing it to pay off my gambling debts, then I'd be more into it. Frustration. I think there is a horror cleaning game. Nope, not the way my brain works. It's fine though, it's fine. And that's the thing, like Power Wash Simulator is too clean. We'll find something. I will definitely find something to satisfy my urges, my needs. Have I ever played Repo? I've played Repo. Yeah, it's a fun game. Thank you for the follow, Tabby Cat. Greatly appreciated. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Let's see. I guess we could play Vintage Story a bit. Still not. Oh, it's gonna take a lot to get into. Maybe just Minecraft. Hello, Yuki. Yuki, I finished Crime Scene Cleaner, and I am so sad. I don't have a game. I could Minecraft. I guess we'll Minecraft. That's fine. That's fine. We've entered Extreme Grumbles. I remember the last time we played to see if volume is set right for this. I should do. Alright. Hate to see me upset, but love to see me pouting. Crazy. Let's make it big. There we go. Was I doing an underground challenge? I might have been doing an underground challenge again. I love my underground challenges. Interesting. I guess we'll keep being underground for a while. It doesn't hit my brain right now. I have a need, and the need is not satisfied. There is no goal or plan here. It just is. We're starting over. We need to start over. Chad, it's broken. Chad, it's broken. It's broken. Oh no. Oh, okay. We're gonna call this one Need for Dopamine. Alright. We're gonna do the underground challenge again. I like the underground challenge. 15 minutes on the clock. It's gonna be 5, 6, 7, 8, 508. Thank you for the check in, Nerdy Fandom. How you doing? And I know, Carmia, you hate when I do these, but it's the only way I can satisfy the brain bug. Brain must be satisfied. I think the reason why I have such an issue with that other game ending right there is that I wasn't prepared for it to end. And so that's what caused the issue. It's like it didn't give me a full finality. So my brain is just begging for like a little finish. I should have gotten a flu shot. If I get the flu, I think I have gotten the flu. I'd explain it. Mushroom. Oh, I should get enough leather for $3. Good morning, God Siren. Jellyfish. Why is Saura piloting my brain? I sure hope not. That's not gonna go well. Oh, hi, Fulfa. Enjoy your tutoring. quarter sheep. Nice. Need these. Ooh, doggies. Hello, dogs. If I find bones, I bring. Oh yeah. Are you making my Chat, I want to see what kind of audio quirks you pick up for me. Chat, if you've picked up any vocal stems for me, my lovely, lovely voidlings, please tell me now. That was an attempted assassination. You talking a southern accent? Got me a UI. Got me a UI. There's no way you copy my southern accent in England. No, come here. Do you like it that much, or does this just tickle your brain in the right way? Is that what it is? It's not good. That makes it better. Oh, that is the best. You copied my German. Oh no, that one might get you in trouble. I have been waiting for somebody to ask what skib is for the longest time. Naptime, explain to me what skib is. You're legally required to. Naptime, explain skib. I should get a nice little mod pack for this. I mean, it's technically not anything. It's from the Skibbity toilet. And so it's shortened to skib. And so it's just used to refer to something being good. Because that's the way slang works. Thank you for the follow, Ghoul Zane. Welcome, Zany Poo. Nah, I mean, usually if it's negative, it's not skib. So that's so not skib would be so that's negative. Oh, well, yeah, but I mean, Nap's the only person who normally uses it, so we're doing that. Which really kind of shows you that words don't mean nothing. Words don't mean a single gosh darn thing. Have I ever pointed out to y'all that I can't swear anymore? It is so funny to me. And I mean, I can't swear in a way that my dad considers swearing. Like, unless I have to put intent on it now. I've kind of trained myself not to swear. And so when I do see something that is a swear, I kind of have to make myself say it. I didn't think it'd be that effective, but I guess putting an awareness on something. Oh, hello. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, hi, everybody here. Oh, don't worry about all the food on the screen. Let me clean that up for you real quick. You know, we'll let y'all have breakfast. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Ah, my name's LuckyJene. I'm a gambler, a rider, and a soon-to-be villain. What were y'all doing? I'm currently stuck in a southern voice because I decided to do it earlier and now it won't go away. Thank you so much for the follow and thank you so much for the raid. Also, since y'all are here, let me make sure the feature's still working. It's here somewhere. Don't move. Be patient. 1 second. There we are. Welcome. I hope you understand that I'm not gonna let y'all go now that you're here. Don't bonk me. But what were you up to? Let's take a look real quick. Also, if you need to raid and run, feel free to do so. I totally understand. But if you'd like to hang out here, relax a bit with us, wake up a little bit, then you feel free to do so as well. Oh good, you're also doing ASMR. But I hope you enjoy your time here. And now we can drop back to the normal voice. We're just doing some little Minecraft, some very casual building and heading. Hey, Mochi. Have a good sleep. Sleep well. Rest up. And thank you for the raid, I really do appreciate it. Really. You're going to push me into this accent. Why would you do this? We have guests over, aren't you? You're going to do this to me. So rude. So absolutely rude. And thank you for the follows. Greatly appreciated. Welcome to the menagerie. But you do good voices. I suppose. Vielleicht soll ich nur auf Deutsch sprechen jetzt. Ist das besser? Machst du das? Oder willst du das auf Englisch jetzt? It's all good. Everything is fine. And thank you for the updates, Exhibits. I really do appreciate it. You caved. It's understandable. So, lovely raiders, do you mind telling me what kind of ASMR was happening over there? Were you doing more of the classic? Or more of like mine, the more soft-spoken? I hope it's not too much of a change to jump between the two now. Don't worry, chat. I have been working on a British accent to throw into the ring. The one we are working on right now is I would like to get close to... What is his name? Was amazing. Always gives the best comfy vibes. Oh, that's amazing. What is your favorite part of that stream? Enjoy the corner. But yes, the British one we are going to work on is going to be like one hell of a butler. We'll get there eventually, though. Black butler, that's the word for it. I'm going to work on his accent for a while and see if I can get close. Now, the ear massages. I'll have to do that more eventually. See if I can get to the point where I can get my mic to work nicely without picking up too much background noise. That was always the issue I had with those ears. I need practice with them. All right. Gibbons, how much time do we have left? Thank you so much for the follow, and welcome to the menagerie. 2 minutes, alright, then we should try to grab as much wood as we possibly can, since I'm not going to have much of a chance to get more below. Unfortunately. Enjoy your walk. Be safe. You want a Cockney accent? That would be crazy. I'm sorry, but I've decided that I'm going to do exclusively Paul McCartney. We're going to do the Beatles style of accent. I did that once and people hated it. Oh, people absolutely hated the Beatles British. Thank you so much for the lurk, and thank you for checking in, Anastasia. Okay, I think we have enough wood. I think we have no more time, so down we go. That was closer than I like to admit. Let's see how lucky we can get. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25. Oh. Well, interesting. I've gotten so used to breaking myself up into a wall. Just comes out of habit. I love when people ask me for directions out in England. Look on their faces when I would say, y'all go make a U-turn, head down over yonder. Oh, that is fun. That is fun. Getting directions in the South has always been one of the worst experiences for me. Because everybody expects you to know the place like they know it. There we go. And I'm like, they're like, hey, here's this landmark. And I'm like, great, but I don't know what that landmark is going to look like. And unless I know what I'm looking for, my brain is not going to hold on to that information. Not even a little bit. Is the game too loud, by the way? Are we okay with it? It's fine. Good. Glad to hear. Oh yeah, I can just imagine turn left at the hobbled tree, but what on earth is a hobbled tree? Yeah, turn left at the Buc-ee's. That's like saying turn right at the Starbucks in a suburban area. Which Starbucks? Well, my favorite one is when they put age. You gotta take a ride at the new Starbucks, not the old one. There we go. Oh, Mochi's model's adorable. I love the floppy bunny ears. That's incredible. Oh, that's dangerous. Let's not do that. There we are. Okay, so here's the goal. We need consistent fuel. We only have a little bit of wood. I have a tree that will hypothetically grow, but we can't guarantee it. So, our options right now are find iron for a bucket, get a source of water, and grow kelp into a permanent food source. I don't have enough leather for the books I need. I should have killed one more cow. I guess you learn. Live and learn. Oh, copper. That'd be nice. If only I could make a... Wow. What are you twerking for? Have I gotten too grumbly? Everybody went quiet. I noticed. You know what? Let me read a little bit of poetry real quick. I think I'm feeling some poetry. Should we go with the classic? Let's see what we have. Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let me avow. You are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet if hope has flown away in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream in a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and hold out within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep. Oh God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? Oh God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream? Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcased of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. Oh, I'm sorry, Jay. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Come me, go get your nails done. Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly, your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into the darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dreamed to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." As I whispered, an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely, that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obseisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mime of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be short and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answers little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing a bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." And then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless said I, "What it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gone ominous bird of yore, met in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushioned velvet lining, the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloated o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he has sent thee, respite, and nepenthe from the memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still of bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by the God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aden it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels named Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beat from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door, quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven never flitting, still a sitting, on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is streaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws a shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted, nevermore. And that was the raven. I'd only meant to do a little bit of reading, but I got lost into it. I love that one so much. Isn't it? The night is cold, the stars above crying, 50,000 tiny lights remembering what once was brilliant evening, and I find in the barren chill 100 more lights blinking lively, as though to perch upon my mind something permanent, soaked in summer evening. Fun. I do get lost in poems. Sure. Go for it, dwarf. Is it something that you can type? Respite. I will argue on you with respite or respite. Because I think that is a regional thing. Nepenthe. That one I'll do though. What are my rules for fan art? No fetish content. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's a regional thing. I think my general view of my general view of fan art is that, like, I love fan art any kind and with any sort of characters. Oh, my one other thing is, if you do draw like a romance scene between me and another content creator, make sure to get the other content creator's permission first. I would never. Oh no, totally. I know the one word that you said, the N word, NEP, and oh, let me not call that the N word. The word that began with N. I still have difficulties pronouncing it. I will need to Google it to pronounce it properly. But the way I've been mispronouncing it has been fun. Good morning, Sheikah. We might go a little bit longer this morning. Maybe like an extra 30 minutes. I just need to get my work computer set up. Do y'all mind giving me a second to do that? Oh, werewolves are fine. That sounds fine. Hi, thank you, Dar, for the sub. I appreciate it. I'm so glad you got the one back, Dar. I'm alive, the assassin's missed. Oh, that's cute. One second. Alright, we're back. We're back. I'm partially back. One sec. Okay, we're back. Who are you telling? Crazy, I can't believe you're telling 7. Alright, our goal now is to find water. Or apparently my doom. Is my doom here? I know, we're going a little bit longer today. I've got my work computer set up in the background, and so as long as it is there, if I hear a call, I can take it, and that's when we'll probably come to an end. Oh, that was not good. I appreciate the concern. I do. That was almost dangerous. But genuinely though, Dar, thank you so much for the resub. It means a lot. I think it's funny, since I have my chat overlaid on my screen, every once in a while, I will see... I do appreciate you caring, by the way, Yoshihiko. I will see like an emote will line up perfectly with something on the screen, and that little waving emote lined up with one of the inventory slots. And so it's like I got that emote in my inventory. It was cute. Iron pickaxe that lasts a little bit longer. Let's get enough iron for a bucket. And maybe we can make a sword as well, because it uses the least amount of wood for a weapon. Bucket. I do wish they had, you know, other... My brain just is gone. Brain gone. Brain gone, gone. Grumble. Is all that's left in my brain now. This will do for now. Brain meats. Delicious brain meats. All we want to do is eat your brain. We're at an impasse here. Maybe we can compromise. All we want to do is eat your brain. We're not unreasonable. I mean, no one's gonna eat your eyes. When they open up the door, we'll all come inside and eat your brain. I remember that song that had that World of Warcraft edit. Do y'all remember that? I miss those days. I miss the days when people would make bad edits of games, where they just like record footage of them running around and try their hardest to make like goofy content. Now it's all AI slop. If you didn't want to learn how to animate, you used a video game. Grumble. Alright, one sec. Okay, everything's good. I grumble all the time. It's my #1 pastime at this point. Dar's out to get silver. Who's silver? You saying I grumble a lot? Are you saying I... What? Why would you... I do not... I do not complain. Fight me. Sing the song of my people. Oh. Hello, Seven. I hear you. What's Seven called? Ooh, okay, here's what we need. Here's what we need. I need a bin. And then there we go. Okay, this will make my life a little bit easier. Temporarily, at least. Composter, amazing. Put the sugar cane away. Put all this stuff away that I'll need later. Could make a bow, but we have no others for arrows. I also like barrels more than chests. It's a nicer aesthetic. A grumble shirt, really. Y'all. Maybe. Oh, I was thinking about, first off, we do need to come with merch ideas, so maybe I'll design, and you know what? Maybe I'll do some designs and you can vote on them. I think I'm gonna make Instagram like a behind the scenes, more of a like Gene on the daily kind of place. Because Instagram does not seem to like just my clips and I'm not popular enough. So I might do just like a normal uploading of the clips, but also use Instagram as exclusively a like, this is where you get to know, learn more about Gene kind of thing. Behind the boy failing, exactly. Just like I woke up, I'm going to the mountains, we're going to go record the sound of sticks breaking. Something a little bit more personable. Because I see a lot of like celebrities do that kind of thing. Yeah. What would you like, Dwarf? Are you talking about what Carmia is describing, or the way I'm using Instagram? Oh, thank you for the follow. Thank you. Oh, really? Oh, no winner this time. Yeah, 'cause I think, like, I need to start using the platforms more uniquely. And YouTube, I definitely need to just make long form content. And I think I'm gonna make some of those, like, boyfriend is trying to lull you to sleep, but keeps tripping over Mountain Dew cans. Not that that was an idea I was working with or anything. You know, I exclusively bought 48 Mountain Dew cans so that I could get the cans. But the problem is, do you know what I found out? And I hate, and I'm so upset with? They make soda cans slightly thinner than they used to. And so they don't have the right sound. So I might need to just go buy a bunch of energy drinks, unfortunately. because the sound that I got last time was from, I think, Monster Energy drinks or Arizona iced tea. I think it was Monster Energy. No, I know though, like the sound is not as satisfying. You have to admit that one clip I have where I'm like, chat, my room's not that messy. And then I hit the cans and they fall over. It made the perfect sound. I make some of my own sound effects, but I also use some pre-recorded sound effects. Usually I go through like a lot of these, there are websites. So the can sound effect was actual cans that I knocked over on my desk. And I do like doing my own Foley, but some of them that I do are like pre-recorded sounds that people have posted. There are websites dedicated just to people posting their own sound effects and background noises. You hate the sound of opening cans? Alright, Chub, good to see you. Oh, I'm not an audiophile. I'm an... I'll bark afterwards. An audio slut. Woof. There's a lot of like pre-done audios, but also a lot of them are done with like general things. For instance, I do a lot of mine. I will get close to the sound as I can. You'd be surprised the amount of noise you can make with just a blanket. Nap time. Oh, you hate opening them with your long fingers. Okay. Sorry. I didn't realize it was going to be that loud. How's everybody doing? What's stomp? Like stomping on cans? Nap time, why aren't you wearing gel? Get gel. Get gel. Can't believe you're doing polish. Polish is so bad for you. Gel's better. Oh, Caramillo, when is your birthday, by the way? I figure out when all the mods' birthdays are. I don't paint my own nails. I don't have the coordination for it. I do, however, get my nails done every once in a while. It's been a while, though. I get my eyebrows done, and I get my... Thank you for the follow. Welcome, Sheikah. Ooh, oops, 1 second, chat. I am getting a call. We're gonna see if I can handle this quickly. Alright, we're back. What was I talking about? I got a call, but nobody was there, and it weirdly just said chick. Which, like, really threw me for a loop. Which means that, like, did someone put in her number as chick? Anyways. Ooh, what a nice little sound. Very strange. Enjoy your eats. Sleep well. Bye, Chub. Chub, just for you one of these mornings. Do I know what morning works for you? We'll do a gaming stream one of these mornings. Oh, wait, when was Karmia's birthday? Did I miss it? Chat, I didn't hear Karmia say her birthday. What did they say it was? Yeah, Chub. Oh. I'll need you to pick a day and we'll do a gaming stream in the morning for you sometime. I remember meeting you through the gaming. Oh, next summer. Okay. Fair enough. Alright. Karmia, I'm gonna go pay to get your nails done, okay? You're gonna go get gel nails. How are you with sensory issues on your fingers? Because for me, I like gel nails because they give an added heft and weight. They give a sort of strength that I really enjoy. But if you don't like any extra weight on your fingertips and that bothers you, then gel might be a sensory issue for you. I'd say try it. Hello. Hello, Gammy. How you doing? Oh, yeah, no, but there are places, there's a lot of stylists, nails people who do it just privately. Like they'll do it in one-on-one booths. Not even a booth. The place that I used to go to, which I can no longer go to because it was my ex's place. It was just the one person in her own room. She ran her own little gel studio. Did amazing work. Oh, chat, my birthday is February 17th. I expect you all to be there. We're celebrating. Should we do the fundraiser on the same day? Thank you, John. Your name is hilarious. Valid. Well, I will pay for both of your nails to get done. Okay. And that way you can encourage them. February 17th, yes. Everybody deserves to have their nails done at least once. And I do not see it as something out of the ordinary to get a gift from my mods. Y'all do such amazing work for me, it's the least I can do. Well, I hope you enjoy your time here. gonna be very relaxed and just yapping a bit. Keeping my tone nice and low until work demands my attention. Well, you should get your nails done. Everyone should get their nails done. Chat, that's a new requirement. Everybody has to go get their nails done. It's gonna be so funny when I have a 3D model and you can see me turn around. Get black and red, match my aesthetic. Show off your brand loyalty. Well, the goal is to have your nails done by somebody else, but that's okay. Thank you for the bits on, yeah. Thank you for the check-in. I think I might get Oshi marks. I might just get little hearts. Alternating red and black. So lost already. Hello, Zombie Bob. How you doing, sweetie? Do we go down before? Or is this not the right way, right? Yeah, that's not the right way. That's fair. Alright, we're gonna follow the right wall until I get home. So this is the hole that I keep finding. Really? Congratulations. I hope it went well. Found it. Found home. This isn't home, is it? Nope. That's fair. There was two of them. There was two of them. That happens. Okay, we're back. Let's see, we have 15 minutes. How did I make you cry laughing? What happened? Hydrate? Okay. 6. Oh, this is the best starting point. What the heck? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't make you laugh. Alright, so at 6:10 is when we're going down. Not 6:07. Honestly, though, a perfect starting spot. Holy crap. No 6:07. Thank you for the hydrate, by the way. Thank you for the check-in. I really do appreciate the check-ins. And they help Twitch recognize me. – 6:07. set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart. If I had my one and only desire, that would be you. No one else will do. I lost all ambition for worldly acclaim. I just wanna be the one you love. And with your admission that you feel the same, I could be the one you're dreaming of, believe me. I don't want to set the world on fire. I actually recently bought silicone proofing baking things for bread. So I feel you on that one. Bread. Bread. Thumbs up. Bread. Once the baskets arrive, yes, I will be making my own bread. Hey everyone, have you heard about a guy named Butcher Pete? Pete just rolled into the town and he's chopping up all the women's meat. Backing and whacking and smacking. Back, whack, chopping the meat. Just some standard white bread. Maybe some sourdough at another time when I make a sourdough starter. Thank you for the follow. Johnny, don't leave me. You said you were no chump. And the family won't like this. Bust your kneecaps, whopped into. Bust your kneecaps, that's what we're going to do. Release the bakers. Release the baker. Thank you for the bets. Thank you for the bets, butter. Thank you for the butter bets. The buttery bets. I need a song to hum. I need a song, and I can't think of one right now. I didn't make my boat, I'm silly, but now I have, and now I have it, so I can go over there. Pumpkin. Pumpkin, pumpkin, pumpkin. There are few who deny that what I do I am the best, for my talents are renowned far and wide. When it comes to surprises in the moonlit night, excel without ever even trying. And since I am dead, I can take off my hand to recite Shakespearean quotation. No animal or man can scream like I can. Fury of my recitation. And a live, laugh, love treat. Hope you enjoy your time here. This is the chill, calm morning. We have more chaotic energy in the afternoon. But I hope you enjoy the chill vibes. Yes, I am. Well, what have we here? Santa Claus, huh? Oh, I'm really scared. So you're the one everybody's talking about. You're joking, I can't believe my eyes. You're joking, you gotta be. This can't be the right guy. He's ugly, he's ancient, I don't know which is worse. I might just be to see now if I don't die laughing first. Mr. Huggy Boogie said, the trouble close at hand. Better pay attention now, 'cause I'm the boogeyman. Whoa, whoa. I'm the Huggy Boogeyman. What's this? What's this? There's in the air. What's this? What if I just did a Nightmare Before Christmas cover album? Hello, Hoshi. I'm glad we're going a little bit longer today. Got all the cool people. Hello, Hoshi. Can we get a shout out for the lovely, lovely, lovely Hoshi? That's fair. Corpse Bride's a good thing. What's your stream, Hoshi? Okay, we don't have any melon. I want to see if we can find a melon. There's a melon before the time runs up. I think I have, honestly, 1 single minute. Been good. How are you doing? I'm doing very well. Come on, 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 come on. Oh, I have 5 minutes. Oh, I do have 5 minutes. You know what? We'll call it here. I have everything I need. I even have a bucket of water. What else do I need? You beat the dragon? Congrats. Very impressive. I have yet to beat the Ender Dragon once. Down into the mines we go. Where we'll stop, no one knows. Alright, and now to risk it. Oh, she pick a number between 1 and 30 for me. Oh, also, if you need a raid and run, please feel free to do so. And to all you lovely new raiders, my name's LuckyJene. I'm a gambler, a writer, and a soon-to-be villain. It's lovely to meet you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Alright, here's where we'll be. Hello, Missy. Have a good one. Call Jack cute beans. Sure. Chat. You are all lovely cute beans. Hmm. Oh, I know you didn't know she. That's why I did it. Imagine if I just fallen to my death. Would you blame yourself? You shouldn't, but would you? Oh, you shouldn't. I just do dumb things because I think they're funny. And guess what? They are so funny. I am a victim of my own nonsense. I'm such a good doggy. There's your redeem. Can't believe you'd make me say that. What an awful, awful person. Kidding, of course. Kidding, kidding, kidding. Nonsense is great. It is the best. No, luckily I don't have much either. Dare I say, Hoshi, if you need to ride and run, feel free to do so. I don't remember. Not that you need my permission, but like, I always check in just in case. I think it'd be so funny if there was a streamer who just like waited and refused to leave until given permission. You're allowed to leave, Hoshi, if you would like. I mean, we'll go a little bit longer. I'd say another 30 minutes should be good. I need one more dirt. Oh no. Ugh, fine. I did. I lied. You'd be surprised to do that quite often. I would never lie. Come here, don't spread rumors about me. I've also never gaslit anybody in my entire life. This is jokes, by the way. Thank you for the sub. Really appreciate it, Catbot. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is almost claustrophobic. I need another block here. There we go. Nice. You smell chocolate. Oh, that's an idea. I just do this. Bloop, 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 bloop. I forgot I said that. Yeah, I smell like chocolate when I lie. That's one of my favorite things. Thank you so much for the redeem. No. What are you working on, Hoshi, if you don't mind me asking? Oh, hello, hole. Oh, Hoshi, that could have been bad. Imagine if you told me digging a few steps to the left. Hoshi, you chose the perfect number of down. Ooh, do you see what I see? Moss. Oh, happy day, oh, happy day. There's a good chance we'll find water down there. Gene, be smart. Let's not go too crazy. Be patient. Oh, I mean, that sounds. I mean, how do you want a VTuber to act? You're the VTuber. Do you want to do a character, or do you want to do more of a. Yeah, whatever. Do you need any help? You got Sour Patch? Very nice, very nice. Oh. Well, I mean, look at me. If anybody can be silly, if I can do it, everyone can do it. Everyone deserves to be silly. Alright, we're gonna see what we got here. Okay, I think I'm gonna try to grab some of that water so we can have a permanent water source up top. My one worry is that stupid creeper I saw over there. Where'd he go? I knew it. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There he is. Oh, that's some long distance shooting. Rude. There's another one. Careful. Careful. Thank you for the follow. Greatly appreciated. Welcome. 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 Let's not jump. Oh boy. Oh wait, no, are you wanting... Oh, sweetie, are you wanting to be silly just for clips? Or are you wanting to be silly because you want to be silly? Because I want you to never do anything that you're not, that you don't feel like is you. I mean, if you would like to talk about content sometimes, you want to kind of solidify your brand, I would happily do that. And if you want to be silly, you be silly. But if you don't want to be silly, I would love to talk to you about kind of, establishing your brand. Because, I mean, if I can do it with you, then I can teach a class on it. And isn't that honestly my... Oh, bet. Okay. Yeah. No, you wanna set some time aside? You and me can work together and we'll figure something out. Ooh, hello, dinner. Don't scare me, you dork. Is this all the way to the ocean? Am I just getting, like, ocean fish here? That was so many fish. What the hey? Is that my waterfall? Where'd these fish come from? Why did fish spawn from my... Okay. I'm not gonna question it. We have food now. I can't eat tropical fish. What do you mean I can't eat tropical fish? Why can't I eat the tropical fish? It won't cook. Use them to breed axolotls? Are you kidding me? What a waste. You can't cook them, you can just eat them raw, apparently. So lame. Oh, you know what's funny? I think the reason why this forms tropical fish is because it runs down there. And thus it just spawns fish. I could possibly make a fish farm. And it would just give me these, which would take forever to eat, but hey, free food, right? I am doing the underground challenge. It just makes the game better. You're only allowed 15 minutes on the surface, and then you want to see how far you can go. This is my challenge. Have a fishing rod? No string yet. Can I grow bamboo on Mars? Yeah, Kamiya, it does. Let's find out. We can. Nice. I'm so glad you're with me on this one, though, Carmia. What do you mean by busy? If you're looking for some of my time, it is easiest to get my time on weekends, yes. I'm always willing to give time to friends. But just let me know and I can always make things work. Mm. Gotcha. You just spilled water? Oh no. Don't do that. Dork. Hypothetically, you can grow an azalea into a full-grown tree, and I do want to try to do that today. I did not pout for a full 5 minutes. What do you mean? That totally wasn't 5 minutes. Don't. What? No. Well, the game should have been longer, okay? You can't. What? Should have made the game longer. Enjoy your work, Chibbits. Okay, here we go. Needs a 3x3 column. We're gonna make 5. Needs to be at least 5 tall. 1, 3, 4. We'll go. Oh, well, I hope work goes well for you. Conservative, crazy. There it is. There's that one. It's a lot of fun, honestly. You want sushi? I could go for sushi. And I know, like, ideally, like, the best underground challenge would be, you know, you have to sort of fully have things underground. And, like, the second you spawn into the world, you go down. But, like, I want to have fun with the game, okay? Let me look at a diagram for this. It did say 3x3. Pilings. Okay. So hypothetically, it only needs this. And so if I were to do this, we're going to remove that. Remove that, and remove that. So we have 1. So this should hypothetically work. Okay. We're gonna try it. I just need more stuff to, you know, Turn to fertilizer first. Luckily, it's going to be the one thing that I think that Minecraft probably messed up that I'm really appreciative of, is that cocoa beans grow so easily underground. Because it genuinely makes no sense. I'll pixelate. Wait, is there anything? Oh, you're right about that, Butter. I hadn't even thought about that. We can grow trees underground, 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 we can grow trees underground. I can grow trees underground. We no longer need bamboo. So if I can somehow start a world that ends up perfectly. Now we have rooted dirt. Incredible. Alright, Chad, it's about 6:30. I can only push this off for so long. I'm gonna have to get to work, so we're gonna find somebody to raid out to, but I cannot believe it was that easy. Now the problem is, if you'll notice, what do I not have now? I don't have an azalea tree. So all it would do is give me enough wood. Unless I got lucky here, maybe? I don't know if there's any way that I can get a azalea bush from one of those trees, unfortunately. So it would let me get wood, but it would be such an inefficient way to get wood. But it works. It do work. Alright, let's go find somebody to raid to. Oh, beaming. Beamy's live. Chat, we're gonna go raid Beamy, okay? They're lovely, very kind, very sweet. You ready? We'll do a little EP raids. Alright, let me get my emotes real quick, 1 second. Bye, little mouse. I'm gonna make a raid message. Give me a second here. Look at everybody following now. Thank you for the follows. Greatly appreciated. Greatly, greatly, greatly. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to the menagerie. Here's the raid message. That's too many hearts. I'm gonna fix this. We're gonna do this. And this. Oh, it's totally fine. There we go. Copy that raid message. EP Rains. Alright, y'all be amazing. Y'all be incredible. Appreciate you all so very, very, very much. Bye, lovelies. Mwah.